Hey, AP Art History, let's go ahead and let's talk a couple of things that I want to go over before we take our test on Friday morning, okay? Hopefully you can do some more review and study this evening after your AP test today and whatever you have going on. So let's talk comparison LEQs first, all right? A couple of things I want you to remember basically on the LEQ, okay? Go ahead and review the videos that I put out over our time of distance learning. Even though they're like a half an hour and another one's like 10 minutes on the thesis statements, I think they'd be really, really good for you guys to review. There's been a lot going on over this time period, and I think those two videos can really help to kind of sharpen the saw, so to speak, okay? All right, regarding your line of reason, okay, make sure to have a good line of reason for both pieces, explaining how both pieces fit into the theme, whatever theme that they ask you about, okay? Have a good line of reason. Everything I was seeing in the essays that were coming in towards the end there with the comparison LEQs, they were good, they were solid, no problems. But under the pressure of the moment, we can kind of forget those things we've been working on, okay? We must have a good line of reason, okay? Third thing on the LEQ that I want to talk about is I want you to elaborate or expand when you can. This is you flexing, okay? And you just got to remember that the College Board kind of looks into those sort of things, and they like that. The graders like that, okay? So if you can elaborate and expand, do so. It helps you to earn the secondary point if there is one, or it helps to solidify the point that you have maybe been on your way to earning, okay? Finally, the fourth thing on the comparison LEQ that I want to talk about is I want you to remember to break your essay up into paragraphs. Do not do one big old block of writing. Remember, you're going to have your thesis up at the top, and it's going to be a pretty straightforward 2 to 3 sentence thesis with a line of reason. Boom. And then you're going to look at everything else that LEQ is asking you to do, and you're going to figure out what things can go into what body paragraph, okay? Remember, one of the things that they're looking at is to see that you are thinking organizationally about art. You can put art into categories and organize it into ways that make sense. All right. Let's now get off of the comparison LEQ and let's talk about the continuity and change over time LEQ, because there was a couple of things that I saw going on this week that I think we can just hone things up a little bit and really get a good score on those, okay? So the first thing I want you to talk about, I want to talk with you about, is that almost every continuity and change over time SAQ is going to at some point ask you to explain the visual characteristics of what you see. That's almost a freebie give me point, okay? But you should be coming in and sounding like you have studied AP Art History. You should be bringing in some of the lingo when you are describing what it is you see, all right? So don't be shy with doing that. And they might be asking you for two things, visual characteristics, plural. Realize though, that's a pretty straightforward question. So you only are likely going to get 1 point for it, but you definitely need to give more than one thing, okay? Flex a little bit, expand a little bit. Whenever you have that opportunity, you do that, okay? All right, the second thing on the continuity and change over time SAQ that I saw happening with a lot of students is in the continuity section. You are going to say how this piece that you're looking at is similar and is in line with earlier pieces. When you do that, come up and name drop an earlier piece that has that similar characteristic. Like one of the ones that I saw going on in the Teresa SAQ, the Ecstasy of St. Teresa, is that a few of you brought up the use of light and brought up how Caravaggio used light in his Baroque piece, The Calling of St. Matthew. That was an excellent, excellent drop of a name right there to really highlight the continuity. You just didn't say that it was a continuity because it had light. That got you 1 point. But when you bring in the name of the other piece, there you go, you're getting into the second point, okay? Another way I saw that with the Teresa SAQ was a couple of people brought up the issue of the Mary and the warrior saints, the Theotokos, excuse me, that's my neighbor back there. All right, so the Theotokos and child with the warrior saints, and then the angels behind them. Well, what did we see with Saint Teresa? We saw an angel and her interacting, and so you've got that continuity of the angels, okay? All right, the last part I want to talk about with you regarding this is the change section of the SAQ. Almost always what I see going on in the continuity and change over time SAQ is when they get to the change section, they are going to say how it differs from the earlier pieces or whatever, but then why does it differ? And so many of you got 4s out of 5s on your practice essays because you were saying how it differed, but you were not saying why it differed. And everybody, that why, it's almost gonna always be because of something culturally is different in the time period of the piece that you're writing about. Or there's something contextually, which can be culture, happening in that time period. So let's talk about the St. Teresa ecstasy. St. Teresa in ecstasy. Everybody was really good saying how it was different, okay? But very few, very few were good at saying why it was different. Well, what was going on at that time? The Catholic Counter-Reformation was going on at that time. And few people really got into that. Now, contextually, another thing you could have said about St. Teresa there was that Bernini was really into the theater and drama, and that's why he brought those changes of bringing in the skylight and adding in the bronze gilt and the side pieces with the Cornaro family. That is true too. That's contextually what was going on. So those were the two potential answers that you could have given there for the why. So the big thing I'm a little worried about here is that I am seeing people really being able to explain how their piece is a change, but they're not able to say why it's a change, and that is coming from the cultural context. You need to look at what's going on in that time period of history. This is really kind of like art history basics. You've got, number one, the art, and that's what we've been talking about, but it's the history, the change, the cultural change that is going on. That's really about that. All right, everybody. Study up, study hard, do your best. High five. We are going to do very well on this tomorrow. Remember, you do not have to get every single point to do well. You absolutely do not have to get every single point to get a 5. You can do this, all right? Good luck.